October 19th, our flight from Rome to Sicily is about to begin. First night in Palermo, just down the street from our hotel. We're on a pedestrian walkway. It's about 7:30, quarter to 8. Very busy. Street musicians and vendors and lovely food. We already have a taste of the Baroque detail that's in so many buildings here, and even in the lampposts. We're in the middle of a square that has 4 different buildings that are replete with statuary all the way up to the top, and fountain down at the bottom. We approach the Fountain of Shame. We'll see why it's so named. These statues at the Fountain of Shame are left without their fig leaves, hence the name. Across the street from our hotel, Massimo Plaza, is the theater, and it is a gem. Our first meal in Palermo after our gelato, bruschetta with Sicilian style with tuna and tomato, and pasta spaghetti with raisins and almonds and olive oil and pine nuts. And it's 9:30 at night, and the place is hopping with families, including kids of all ages. Site of a complex that includes a number of churches, wonderful examples of the blending of Norman and Arab architecture. Walking up this street from the market, and then come upon the cathedral, built on the site of an earlier Christian structure. Parts of this remain from the late 12th century. An interior was refurbished in the 18th century. This is the primary entrance to the Cathedral of Palermo. Sometimes the signage is a bit odd. This honors Santa Rosalie. She's the patron saint of Palermo. The Cathedral of Palermo is the final resting place of the monarchs of Sicily. Okay, it's this way.
Yeah.
Is there too much shadow on our faces? Can you see our faces?
Yeah, do you want your whole bodies though, or?
From here up is fine, thank you. Pomegranate tree, and then a good view of how this was built, then rebuilt, borrowed, and patched. Making our way into the Palatine Chapel. The entrance is covered in the mosaics that we're about to see. Inside as well. Looking at the ceiling, you see wood, and then all the amazing tile work, all the mosaic along the sides. We're looking at the oldest piece of Romanesque art, the candelabrum, which would hold the Easter candle at the top. And this is mosaics are from the 12th and 13th century. The ceiling is wood. The mosaics are all part of Roger II's grand building plan for Sicily. He was responsible for more than half a dozen magnificent cathedrals throughout Sicily and palaces. The altar. Can't really grasp the dome from here. But again, the art faces is of the period where the artists were less enthused with the Gothic feel and more the warmth from these saints. Again, the star details are a vestige of the Moorish or the Islamic influence. We see a lot of that work in the tiles of the floors. The decorations of mosaics here are of different biblical scenes. This is St. Paul. St. Peter intervened with Nero. Again, another scene with Paul and Peter making peace. Story of Noah is depicted here. The chanting in the background does give it a rather ethereal feel while we're visiting this Palatine Chapel. This is known as the Hall of King Roger. We're in the royal apartments now being used for ceremonial purposes by the Sicilian Parliament. This is part of the original structure and complex. You can see the detail, again, the mosaics being used here are just beautiful. And the other rooms are complete with chandeliers and mosaic floors, and again are used primarily for signings and greetings or official government business. Inside Roger's Hall, King Roger's Hall. Peacocks featured in a lot of the art. We're here to go into the Capuchin catacombs. This is from the 16th century. Shelves acted as the drying stations. This was the Hall of the Ladies, and they're in all their finery. And a number of these are as recent as the 1870s. So the blank goods are formed here, and here is a large kiln. The brick. All the different pieces, and they mix their paints and apply all the decoration here as well. Enjoying the artwork of what will be our midday snack. Marzipan and all the different cannoli and beautiful things here to eat. And we're also going to have some gelato and something lovely to sip from this bar. We're at Santoro. This is the church in need of repair that is to become or restored to the synagogue, as noted this past January. It's in what had been the Jewish quarter of Palermo. Hey, it's Saturday morning and we've arrived in Monreale to enjoy the Duomo, the cathedral here. The mosaics, the gold, its initial impression is stunning. The detail in some of the pictures again, we have Noah's story of Noah being depicted here. The ceiling is more spectacular because it is brighter using the gold leaf. The inlay on the walls, again we have that Moorish or Arab influence. From the left and all the way around. Garden of Eden. Eden is forbidden fruit. And the expulsion from the Garden of Eden. And then the biblical stories continue. The binding of Isaac. And then Rivka. Well. And bringing her to Isaac. Even the frames of the windows get this magnificent mosaic treatment. This morning there's going to be a wedding here, so the guests are seated here. Just wanted to get a shot of the stairs, which are also all inlaid. Exterior, part of this complex, and dating from 12th century and on. Again, that great blend of the Norman and Arab. lived at the archaeological park of Sicily on the southern southwest coast of Sicily. This is referred to as Temple E. What we're looking at was a result of an effort from the 50s on to reconstruct that which was found at this site about 100 years earlier. This complex dates from the 5th century BCE. From inside we get a beautiful view of the water. So the depression we're looking at, once upon a time, was a harbor between two groupings of temples, and we're looking out onto Temple A. Nearby will be Temple G. These columns are noted for their size amongst the largest in antiquity. It's been determined that these were quarried from a quarry about 11 kilometers from here. Some of the columns intended for use in this 6th century BCE temple never left the quarry. The size of these columns.
Okay.
Getting a better sense of the walls surrounding this ancient city. Shabbat spent walking to temple. We're at the northern gate fortification. It's our entrance to the edge of the harbor and the temples. Northeast end. Some restoration has taken place to determine that these were homes and also some small shops and ceramic factories. Here's the remnants of that temple we saw when we first walked in from across the harbor. And the edge of that wall, you hear the ocean with the Mediterranean Sea in the background. And we're heading back. Okay, we're entering the Valley of the Temples via the 5th gate. These gates to the city are still discernible, some by the rutted roads. The gates also served ritual purposes in the general veneration of the different gods. This temple is set near water sources that were involved in different religious ritual, and behind it, garden featuring mostly citrus trees. In front of the site of the Temple of Ginsburg, which was reconstructed from some of the finer pieces found of the columns in the area. Two different houses that border or very near what is the site of the Temple of Zeus. Huge bits and pieces now. Again, dating from the 5th century BCE. The site of the Temple of Zeus. The lower stones are authentic from the period. Question remains as to whether it was built according to the original plans. Even in ancient times, there was some question as to whether the original design was going to be completed. In the meantime, wars took place and fires and the like. But they do know that this was the site of a huge temple to Zeus, one of the largest in the ancient world. One of the cisterns surrounding the base of the Temple of Zeus. And this is an example of the colossi that would be mounted above the columns, just under the roof overhang, right along the top edge of the different temples. This one similar to the ones from the Temple of Zeus. In the background, we have the modern city of Agrigento. This is assumed to be the supporting superstructure of the altar connected to the Temple of Zeus. There would be a platform that would rest on these supports, and that's where the ritual sacrifices would be made. It's referred to as the Temple of Hercules, which may be a misappellation going back over 2,400 years. This, again, part of the destruction would have been during various wars as opposed to earthquakes. Making our way up now to the Temple of Concordia, the one that's best preserved because it was used in later years as a site of a Christian dedicated church. Middle of the 5th century BCE, it was repurposed and rededicated approximately 1,000 years later in the 6th century. Acropolis, it's home to Concordia. You can see in the distance the Temple of Juno. Along our route, we come across some almond trees. So we head up to the Temple of Juno, up at the top. Past olive and almond trees. We came from Concordia a couple moments ago. Yeah, you hear the goats, their bells. After a rather substantial hike with nobody around but some goats, we come upon what is apparently still an active archaeological site at the further end of this huge complex. This time, understood to be quarters, which would put it a few hundred years after the construction of the temple. Up close of the goats we heard earlier, and noted for their spiral horns. It's an ancient breed, thought to originally have been brought to Sicily by either the Greeks or the Arabs, and excellent lipid ratio for their milk, explaining the comeback of the Girgentana goats in this valley. From Agrigento through sparsely populated farming area, agricultural communities, and now we're at the Villa del Casal, which is renowned for its mosaics. Okay. It's just to get a sense of the size of the complex. Had its own pools, its own chapel, of course its private living quarters, and probably a lot of reception halls. We come upon the area that it was determined these were the little heaters to provide warm water for the pools, which would have been this area and in the far area. Originally, this villa was constructed for habitation noble family. In later years, they can tell from the changes in the arches and in the perimeter walls that it was being used primarily for defensive purposes. So we're coming through the entranceway. You can just barely make out some of the decorative fresco work that remains on the outer entryway. To view, this would have been image of a military hero on either side of the emblems which depicted various emperors. And the fountains and waterworks at the entrance would have provided not just a lovely entryway, but refreshment for visitors who would probably dusty and thirsty as they approach. Connects the different parts of the villa, including the thermal pools, the reception halls, the latrine. It's pitched toward the center to accommodate what had probably been a welcoming fountain. And details are everywhere, including even off to one side where remains a beautiful mosaic floor. Those entranceways come onto a huge hall. It has remnants of frescoes. And a remarkable mosaic floor. Images of battle scenes. Chariots would have held an obelisk as a tribute to the victories in Egypt, and also statuary in tribute to the emperors of Rome. The whole system included several of different temperature, including a cold bracing one, which would be the last stop. Each pool had its own motif. The center largest one had these 4 boats and was large enough, but one of the largest pools was large enough for swimming and maybe water walking. Shows a meeting of 3 noblemen. Section of mythological creatures. In the center, the 4 boats. In this smaller pool, again, a meeting of noblemen. These would be wonderful places to have small tete-a-tete. See here the raised floor over the heating elements. Off and the smaller size and the privacy walls. This was the latrine for the villa. After the outer court with the fountain, guests would be welcomed into this inner entrance court before entering the villa. The walkway surrounding the columned center features images of different animals, some in great detail. This hallway features pictures of the different wild animals, primarily boar, lion, bear, The idea might be that this is an anticipation of capturing some of them to be displayed at the circus. This continues to be an active site with folks working to reveal and columns cast a shadow over the mosaics. Above, we get a peek into the private entrance of the lady of the house, her entryway to the thermal pools depicts her being waited upon by members of her household who provide ointments and towels and the like. And the utility rooms featured beautiful floors. Provides a image for us of dress of the nobility. They're probably in a dining quarters, depicts a hunt, including the hunter forcing the deer into snares. Bringing back game. Looking for birds. Then enjoying a banquet. Still features beautiful fresco. The imagery includes putti, which are characters, winged characters, childlike, that assist in the gathering of magical and wonderful meals and the like for the nobility. Or features different mosaics, geometric patterns that include shading. Again, the artist was able to, just with the different colors, give us that graduated feel of dark and intense colors into the light. Or hall depicts the, quote, great hunt, which, again, is devoted to the capture of wild animals, which will be displayed in the circus for the enjoyment of the nobility and the emperor. And it's absolutely huge. Gazelles and the birds, the wild boar being captured and then transported by boat. Elephant, over here a tiger being brought back. Camel. The floor in this service room depicts women involved in sports, ball, disc. Here's some sort of competition. One of the women is already wearing a crown, holding myrtle. Another one is ready to be crowned. Open courtyard would have been designed for play, games, water games for the guests and family. Private room in the master's apartment features a musical motif. The putti are playing tambourine, and they're little fellows with hot lyres, pipes, this hall features both a musical and marine theme. This depicts a competition between mythical characters with the judges on either side. Circle, semicircle portico with a fountain, and all the way around, again, a water theme. Depicts children getting involved in the hunt, trying to do their part, capturing birds, smaller field animals. Mythology is mixed with the marine theme, so we have sea serpents and mermen and merwomen, mermaids. Some detail. It's a tremendous mosaic floor. This would have been the Great Hall, where the noblemen would have received guests, expected to offer judgments, decisions as the local folks would require. It's the primary landowner, employer, and the like, all that fell to the resident of this villa. The walls would have been covered with frescoes, so much of that is lost. And these floors were primarily marble, larger pieces, not the fine mosaics that we saw in the private room. Cove and the attached larger chamber were presumed to be used as bed chambers. The center image depicting an embrace surrounded by the seasons. Our approach today in our car to Etna. You can see it, light is hitting it just so beautifully. The snow cap. And I'm standing on a pile of little lava pebbles. Lava rock is used in all sorts of building materials. Stopping alongside the road, still heading up to Etna, we see the Mediterranean off in the distance. The tree cover has changed as we're heading the higher elevation. Get a hill of lava right here. Snow cap, snow, quite cold. We're still in our shorts. It's one of the peaks. And we've layered up. We're gonna live a little more comfortable now. Looking out onto Sylvester Crater. David is now climbing Mount Etna. Puppy dog taking his provisions up. Able to see some of the trail, creating the crevices and the like. The more recent crater of this area is from 2001. Variegated colors in the exposed lava rock. Mino in the rain, and we did get a chance to see a rainbow as we came up in the shuttle. Now that the rain has let up, we do get a chance to appreciate Termino a little bit more.
Maman, let's laugh.
Back in Catania after a day in Etna and Taormino, and daytime, daylight, we can see the sidewalk made of the lava stones. Across from the Duomo of Catania, with all its Baroque frontage and splendor, is the symbol of the city, which is an elephant sculpted of lava with an Egyptian obelisk atop it, and then as an afterthought, a cross. The elephant itself, the legend of the elephant goes back to prehistoric times when Sicily was part of greater continental Europe or Asia, and elephants did roam these areas, and with the break-off, it is assumed that the elephants were downsized over time. Elephant skeletons, fossils have been found in Sicily, and so it has some basis in fact. Arrived in Syracuse and parked at the marina parking. On the island of Ortygia, which is attached to the city of Syracuse, here's the presumed to be the ruins of the Temple of Apollo. We're about to enter a little market just across the way. Without realizing it, we've come upon the huge market spot. And fish and dried vegetables and olives. We're about to enter the old Jewish quarter.
Okay, we're at the airport heading to Malta. And finally see dawn breaking. It's about 6:45 on Thursday. On our approach to Malta, you can make out Gozo, which is to the northwest of the bigger island. We've been in the air for shy of 20 minutes. We should land within the next couple.
Malta International. The airport is only a little bit bigger than the plane we were on. We're approaching the formal gate to Valletta. This was a city that had been under siege. We're staying on Great Siege Road. Below us, the remnants of the trench, similar to a moat. There's a lot of construction going on. Valletta is going to be on display 2018. Malta is named the cultural capital of Europe. So these gates are fairly new, and dimension-wise, it evokes the gates going back to the 1600s. History of Malta as having been the bridge between North Africa and Europe. Also, the destruction that took place. King George VI awarded Malta the George Cross in 1942 for bravery of the citizens who did not surrender to the German and Italian forces. Prince Charles just recently came to celebrate the anniversary, 75th anniversary of that awarding of the George Cross. These various buildings and ancient sites are part of the Malta we'll be visiting, and some of the bits of historical buildings go back to the 16th century. This is the new Parliament building. It's designed to blend in with the colors of Valletta, these golden stone colors. The design here is to accommodate energy efficiency. It's a cool building. This is just looking left street. Into Old Theatre Street and come out onto the harbor. Manuel Island in front of us. Art Museum. This is square, everybody enjoying, and we're in this cafe that I can only compare to Joe's at its busiest a few decades ago. It's a little before noon, and this is the main drag in Valletta. Is just packed wall to wall.
Church, which is the oldest church in Valletta. It was originally constructed in 1566. Particularly unusual is the ceiling. It appears that the painting is right on the stonework without having a layer, and in fact it's stayed remarkably bright and clean all this time.
This is a once a month, last Friday of the month ceremony. Changing of the guard in front of the palace. Reviewing of the troops. Shades of Dirty Dozen. Okay, the entrance of the old guard, ready to be replaced by the new guard. They do look exhausted. So the old guard goes back in, and the new guard follows. So now we're being treated to a bit of a marching band performance at the end of the changing of the guard ceremony. We're in Craft Village, which is a repurposed RAF base. Artisans of all types were invited to set up shop here, and they supply a lot of the different tourist Our shops. First stop is an Olivewood craft store. Yeah, okay. So you can see that this had been, in fact, an Air Force base. And repurposed. Oh, sorry. Ah, it's lovely.
This is the thread that we're working with, and this is our handwork. With our hands, we are making designs to fit inside the butterfly wings. And the pieces start fitting on the inside. No, the one I'm going to say is a bunny joke. To become strong. It's 4 hours work, something like that. Then we are polishing. There's a 10-hour polishing such pieces that we are doing to become very strong. We polish in between each one. and then we give them to the government in Malta to check the quality of the silver, and that's the government hallmark.
Yes.
That's the hallmark, so you know the silver.
It's $9.25.
Yes, to wear, to shower, to use it. That's the hallmark. Now, diamo ancora.
Customizing our night. Now we're heading up from the Arts and Crafts Village toward Medina. Getting a little closer to Walled City. City of Medina. To the left is the outer wall, and then the narrow streets. Close to the coast, well protected from anyone coming up that route. We're in the Cathedral Museum and seeing sculptures of wood made by the mentor of the fellow we spoke to a little earlier today in his own woodworking shop. We're in St. Paul's Cathedral here in Medina. It has a brother cathedral in Valletta referred to as St. Paul's Co-Cathedral. This one predates one in Valletta. The floor is absolutely magnificent with the inlay. Essentially, we're looking at, if you will, tombstones, but just beautiful detail. Now, these are not the resting places of knights. These may have been the nobility of the town. Hundreds of these. This cathedral. What we're seeing is mostly after the late 1600s, as the cathedral had to be rebuilt. Little of it survived a major earthquake. The doors, which we'll see in a moment, did, and one of the frescoes depicting the conversion of St. Paul. Paul's Square in Medina. Got the cathedral, the residence of the bishop, presumably. Just pretty little square. Finally, we found it. In the tradition of the Knights of Malta, throughout the cities, at nearly every corner there is some piece of statuary of a religious nature. Find a way of the primary gate. Get a chance to see the walls again. And these were the moats that were cleaned out, filled in, and then landscaped. We're going to be taking our tour of the battery tunnels. They date back originally to the 16th century. and we'll learn a little more about the Great Siege and how the tunnels have been used over time during other periods when Malta was threatened. This is from the battery overlook. One of the water storage sheds as we just start our tour of the tunnels. Some of the area of the tunnels goes back to the 1600s, and then other areas have been added to.
It will not strip the parts like much of the other furniture. Notably, however, notice that the actual net is made out of chicken wire. So the evidence is that the rope, which they would have otherwise used, was often worn out really quickly on a 24-hour basis.
So you can barely tell if this was a room that was repurposed a number of times, from the time that it was a grain storage area, to communications during war, to air raid shelter area, and to a homeless hangout. An excellent depiction of the critical position of Malta during World War maps from the era. Some of the original maps that came from the map room, they're being restored now. The conservatorist who was working on it became a bit claustrophobic and needed a little bit of a break, so there's going to be somebody returning. This fender box, in fact, is not authentic, and it would not have been in a quarters because of the obvious issues with sanitation. But it was a donation, and this is where they put it. In fact, a sanitary system. The toilet itself has been replaced, but the box. We've arrived at the site of the 13 temples. One site. These sites date back to 500 years at least before the building of the pyramids. Something along the lines of 3600 BCE. So over the course of about 1,000 years, megaliths, that we'll see in a moment, and the various structures were built. They are assumed to have been abandoned for a while and then brought back into use around 2500 BCE. The rounded rocks may possibly have been used to facilitate the movement of the larger megaliths. Essentially, it's wheels or rollers. The structures follow a D-shaped pattern, and it is assumed that these were temples and not private homes of any sort because of the ritual objects that had been found. Initially, this site was discovered because farmers in the early 1900s were having difficulty turning over the land because they kept coming upon huge stones. So it was then came under excavation, and they discovered years after it's come into use. The island apparently was invaded by or welcomed newcomers, brought other rituals, and there's evidence that burials no longer took place, but these temples may have then been used for cremation or burial of remains. That would date. So this is the town, just housing and some commercial area, and built up around it, probably predates some of it, whether it be these houses or ones previous, the excavation of this field. This spot is believed to be the site of the earliest, and much of it remains unexcavated. It suffered the most when the farmers came through and tried to plow it. So this area dates from 3600 BCE. To give an idea of the thickness of some of these floor pavers, again, this was over 1,000 years old before Abraham arrived on the scene. Not Malta, but in our own history. The holes on these blocks indicate the presence of a doorway, some mechanism that would be able to open and close to give privacy or cover for whatever rituals were going on behind it. This was from the later cremation cemetery. Both iconic figurines and traces of ash led them to that type of statuary is suggestive of fertility icons. Some of the decorative work besides the spirals show animal reliefs, goats and bulls. Now in the palace, looking out onto the clock, which tells us the time of day and also the day and the month. The floor below and the ceiling above is primarily from the 19th century. The paintings depict various iconic spots all around the city of Malta, the island of Malta. The portraits in the hallway are of the Grand Masters primarily from the late 1600s through the 1800s. The role of the Grand Master was similar to the king from Malta. However, the title was not inherited. This image is the seal of the Republic of Malta, soon after it gained another level of sovereignty. It includes a traditional Maltese boat, the rising sun, prickly cactus, and the pitchfork and oar or shovel. This hall includes portraits of the political leaders of Malta from the transition to its state of republic. It starts with Queen Elizabeth and proceeds to subsequent leaders, that is, presidents, right through from 74. The current one, incumbent, is in the center over the fireplace. The tables themselves are 18th century, covered in marble, with beautiful. This grand room is decorated with scenes from the siege of Malta, 1565, by the Ottoman forces. It goes all the way around from the beginning of the siege to its conclusion. It continues to be used for state purposes. Known as Page's Hall, this continues to be used by the president today for signing in visitors after they've presented their credentials. We've gone through the armory of the palace, and it does feature some remarkable pieces dating from the late 1400s through the 1600s. This suit of armor is from early 1600s. It's presumed to be worn by the Grand Master. And his steed would have been similarly outfitted. This is Sunday morning from our balcony. Just switch the clocks over here. The light's just so pretty. Monday morning, and we're on a busy bus along with a lot of other folks, mostly Maltese, some tourists like ourselves, heading to the fishing village of Marsaluk. Plenty of sweets to choose from. Entering the fish area. Apparently linens are a big thing here in Malta. Leaving some of the noise of the marketplace behind us, we're hiking up to St. Peter's Pool now. Big view of the harbor. Marsaluk. On the hill on the way up to St. Peter's Pool. What we'll call a water taxi. Or what I'd say, my life in my hands. Across part of the harbor to Vita Rosa. If you don't see any life jackets, it's because there aren't any life jackets. Scared shitless comes to mind. Okay, we're about to take our little cruise around the island, Malta and Gozo, and eventually Camino as well. We're on the Luzzu, L-U-Z-Z-U cruise boat, and just waiting to fill up.
As we shall be back at sea at around 5 o'clock this afternoon. For your information, ladies and gentlemen,
That's our hotel.
The window serving snacks, sandwiches, hot and cold drinks, toilet facilities are on the window as well inside the saloon. Weather forecast for today, ladies and gentlemen, the weather should be partly
Out of the harbor, past St. Paul's Anglican Cathedral.
The seawater lake access through the grotto.
First to stop in our tour was protected marine area. It's a very good name, very, very beautiful spot. And this was where the Asia window was. So had been the arch and the pillar which gave way. The pattern is just, I guess, between the water coming up and the wind, but it's very, very little pattern. It's very, very hard. The shells are firm. That's the little pools to see the two different colors of water. Three. This was Rearjep Point. It's also a sanctuary for a type of puffin bird
Or against something firm,
Yes.
you know, so that you can hold it.
Right.
It's not like they do in Belgium or anywhere else, you know. where they work on a round pillow, so you can put it on your lap, and there you are.
With the spindles. Yeah.
This is the design, the pattern that you learn when you are at the advanced stage. Okay? And use 3 as base and 1 as a runner. And you go 1 over, 1 under, 1 over, 1 under. And keep on going like that until your thread finishes. And then when it finishes, you pull it out. See? Unwind the bubble. Oh, it must be a knot. Yeah.
Thank you.
You see it growing bigger and bigger?
Mm-hmm.
The pattern. Now when you have worked a little bit more than half, you know, you start
We're in the city of Rabat, and we've climbed up the citadel. This is one of the entrances that predate the Arab occupation, so before the 9th century. The cathedral, found in the middle of the citadel complex. The citadel being the fortress defending the city of Rabat and then Victoria. So we can see the 3 islands. The near one with the large church goes out. To the left is Mina, and then off to the center. Entering Blue Lagoon now. Dip in the Blue Lagoon was lovely. We came across this sign, which now proves without a doubt that Pearl Smith Coles was in fact
was known as the Ansur window in Gozo.
From Elephant's Rock, we're going to be entering a number of caves known as St. Mary's Caves. St. Mary's Caves. It's Tuesday, October 31st, our 35th anniversary, and we're starting the day looking at some ancient sites at Gar Dalam. Before going into the cave, this hall explains the different time periods of evolution of life on Malta, including the period of time of the dwarf animals, including dwarf elephant, hippopotamus. Just to give an idea of the size of the dwarf elephant in relation to man. This gives rise to the understanding that Malta was connected by land bridge to Europe, as a number of these same animals were found in Sardinia and Sicily and Italy. This case describes the size of a typical Maltese dwarf elephant that at the shoulder would have been approximately 1 meter tall. Pomegranate tree on the way down to the cave site. See the tiny pomegranates? Upon entering the cave of Gar Dalam, we'll be looking to see if we can distinguish the different strata that are known by the dominance of certain types of bones and flora of the period. So there's the red deer, there's the hippopotamus, there's the elephant, layers. Bone-free, bone-laden, which is hippopotamus, then to another bone-free layer. The garden leading down to the cave has been a conscious effort to revive, replant native species, and eradicate non-native species, those that have been brought into Malta over the last century or so. And just beyond can make out the beehives that are probably brought in to facilitate the growth and nurturing of these plants and trees. This includes rosemary and laurel, and carob, and the name of the family, I assume, and then an image is very common to see along the streets. We're on our way back to Valletta now. Making our way back to the town of Tarshan, which is along our Bus 82 route. And then to see the balconies. Some lovely ironwork on the balconies. Part of the women's prison. At least that's what its sign says. I don't know if it's still used for that. War Memorial here in Florina, which is just outside the gates of Valletta. And the top of the memorial looks just like my charm. We're in a historical private home of the DePiro family, referred to as a noble home, noble family, noble palace. This is referred to as the green room. Obviously a very religious family. There's a lot of portraiture involving martyrs and cardinals and other such notable characters. It's an unusual portrait of probably a little boy of the period, mid-18th. Blown glass Venetian chandelier, which is the portrait room. Features portraits of many members of the DePiro family, going back to the 1700s, including a portrait of a small child, which apparently was used as part of the marriage contract to indicate a healthy young child of noble birth.
Okay, so this is the
Traditional Maltese clock, and also another example of a traditional Maltese clock on the wall. That's a piece of Maltese furniture made of Maltese wood.
in the summer months for dining, and those summer themes are continued in its decoration. So the blue and whites on the walls, the summer motifs in the landscapes and the portraits. As well, we have a statue of Diana here, representing wildlife and nature, but also the room utilised.
One of the few intact collections of surgical instruments that would have been used by the Knights of Malta, all in silver, which made them safer for use anyway because they're antibacterial, and the silk purse in which they were kept was restored by the Victoria Albert Museum. We're now in the public bomb shelter, which was attached to the privately built bomb shelter underneath this palace of the DePiro family. These were used during the bombings of the early 40s, during which Valletta was heavily bombed for over 2 years. There's a little carved altar in the wall here in the public bomb shelter. There were different entrances and exits carved in so that there could be access from various streets up above, and also multiple exits. Heading up on the Valletta to Salima ferry now. You can see our hotel from the ferry. On Well Island. Just walking up the streets in Salima. Pretty, they're colorful. As we've seen before, has the little bits of religious statuary on the side. Sometimes it's a picture. All the, they call box windows, we call that. Interesting coat of arms above a very involved doorway. And again at the corner, per the request or demand of the Maltese Knights, this is our room. Another at the Excelsior Grand Hotel in Valletta, and it's been very, very comfortable. We've enjoyed ourselves thoroughly. And we've had a beautiful, beautiful view every morning. This is what greeted us when we returned from our anniversary dinner. I think that's partly due to my beautiful husband saying something about it. Isn't that pretty? We've walked into St. Publius Parish Church in Floriana. They're offering space during renovations to the different choirs that need practice before they perform next week. Valletta will be hosting a competition of choirs from all over Europe. You see the chandeliers are covered. And there is some work being done at the back of the apse. They're probably lifting up this desk table. In front of the Parish Church of St. Publia is a huge piazza, and these little, they look like bases of columns, are actually caps that were over the granaries that ensured the safety and security of the population. These go back to the 1600s. This particular piazza has 76, more than any other existent granary in Malta. They dotted the island once upon a time and have since been paved over, excavated through for new construction and the like. So this is the largest of the remaining granaries. In a country that has a lot of different statuary, Catholic churches and such, somebody has to be adept at gilding. That's what this fellow does. Again, we're not even in Valletta now, we're in Florina, but on the corner. This is the Lion Fountain. Lion is a symbol of Florina. And we're in a little park that has 9 of these granary caps. Okay, this is our room. This is a good perspective because you can see here the pools, the little beach. This is a pavilion that they're completing the setup. And this has been our view. This is how clear the water is. Island was site of the submarine base during World War II. Palace, we see the guards today have switched over to their winter uniform. It's November 1. That marks the beginning of winter here in Malta. So they're in their dark blues. Yesterday they were enjoyed another flaky treat at Cafe Cordina.
It's just after dawn and we're taking our early flight, leaving Malta behind, making our way back home.